Dr. Kim Soo rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. The numbers still made no sense. He had been working at the Ganymede Deep Space Communication Array for 12 years, and he had never seen anything like this signal. Park, hi, come look at this, he called to his colleague across the room. Dr. Park Hai walked over, her coffee cup steaming in the cold air of the station. The communication array sat on Jupiter's moon Ganymede, far from Earth's busy radio signals. Here they could listen to the quiet sounds of space without interference. What do you have? Park Hai asked, looking at the screen over Kim Soo's shoulder. I found the signal buried in the cosmic background radiation. It's not natural. Look at these patterns. Kim Soo pointed to the waveforms on his monitor. This is mathematics. Complex mathematics. Park Hai set down her coffee and pulled up a chair. She had worked with signals from space for 8 years, but this was different. The signal had structure, purpose, intelligence behind it. Where is it coming from, she asked. That's the strange part. The origin point is 47 light-years away in the Kepler 442 system, but the signal isn't pointed at us. It's aimed at a star system in the opposite direction. For the next 6 hours, Kim Soo and Park Hai worked together to decode the signal. They used every computer program they had, every mathematical tool available to them. Slowly, the message began to make sense. This is a distress call, Park Hai said, staring at the translated text on her screen. The message was desperate. The senders called themselves the Vel. They were under attack by something they called the Devourers. The Vel were asking for immediate military help. They had included star charts, information about their weapons, and detailed reports about their enemy. Kim Soo, look at this, Park Hai said, her voice shaking. They're not asking for a little help. They're asking for a full military response. They say 3 of their worlds have already fallen. Kim Soo read the message again. The Vel had included technical data about their ships and weapons. Even though the information was incomplete, it was clear that their technology was far beyond anything humans had. If the Vel are this advanced and they're losing, Kim Soo said slowly, what does that say about their enemies? Park Hai had the same thought. We need to report this to Earth immediately. The message to Earth took 43 minutes to travel from Ganymede to the home planet. The response took another 43 minutes to come back. Then the arguments began. The United Colonial Council met in emergency session. Politicians, military leaders, and scientists argued for 3 days about what to do. Most of them said humans should ignore the message. This is not our fight, said Councilmember Johnson. We barely have the technology to travel between planets in our own solar system. How can we help someone 47 light-years away? The signal wasn't even meant for us, added General Morrison. We would be interfering in someone else's war. That could bring these devourers to our doorstep. But Dr. Park Hai had traveled to Earth to speak to the Council. She stood before the assembled leaders and made her case. The Vel technology is centuries ahead of ours, she said. Their ships use energy sources we don't understand. Their weapons can destroy planets. If they're losing this war, what happens when the Devourers finish with them? Do you think they'll just stop? She activated a holographic display showing the star charts from the Vel message. Look at these attack patterns. The Devourers aren't just conquering, they're consuming everything. Every world they take is stripped completely bare. This isn't conquest, this is extinction. Commander Lee Tae, a military officer known for his practical thinking, studied the data. He had spent his career preparing for threats to human space. This was unlike anything in their training manuals. Dr. Park Hai is right about one thing, Lee Tae said. If this threat is real, it won't stop at the Vel. We can either fight it now, when we have allies, or fight it later, when we're alone. The debate continued for hours. Most council members still wanted to ignore the signal. The distance was too great. The risk was too high. Humans were not ready for this kind of conflict. Then Kim Soo presented new information he had discovered. I've been analyzing the Vel communication technology. They're using quantum entanglement for instant communication across vast distances. If we could understand how this works, it would change everything for humanity. Dr. Park Hai added, the Vel have also included defensive technologies in their data package: energy shields, advanced armor, propulsion systems that can travel faster than light. Even if we can't save them, we might learn enough to save ourselves. Commander Li Te had been quiet during most of the debate. Now he stood and addressed the council. 3 months ago, we completed the first successful test of the Alcubierre drive on the prototype ship Resilience. The drive worked. We can travel faster than light, at least for short distances. With modifications, we might be able to reach the Kepler 442 system. The room fell silent. The Alcubierre drive was humanity's greatest technological achievement, but it was still experimental. Only one ship had the drive, and it had never been tested for such a long journey. "You're talking about an 18-month journey into unknown space," said Council Member Chen. "Even if the ship survives the trip, what can 30 or 40 humans do against an enemy that's defeating an advanced civilization?" Li Te looked at the star charts again. "Maybe nothing. But maybe that's not the point. The Vel sent a call for help." No one answered. "If we don't try, what does that say about humanity?" Dr. Park Hai stepped forward. "I volunteer to go." Kim Soo stood next. "I volunteer too." One by one, other people in the room began to volunteer. Scientists, engineers, military officers, pilots. Within an hour, more than 200 people had volunteered for what many considered a suicide mission. Commander Li Te watched the volunteers with surprise. He had expected maybe a dozen people to step forward. Instead, he was looking at enough crew members to staff 10 ships. The council voted that night. The decision was close, but they agreed to send the Resilience. The ship would carry a crew of 37 volunteers. Their mission was to make contact with the Vel and offer whatever help they could provide. Captain Cho Min was selected to command the mission. She was young for a starship captain, but she had more experience with the Alcubierre drive than anyone else. Chief Engineer Dr. Yoonji would oversee the ship's systems during the long journey. As the Resilience prepared to leave Earth orbit, Kim Soo worked frantically to improve their communication equipment. If they were going to help the Vel, they needed to be able to talk to them. Park Hai focused on understanding the Vel technology data. Every piece of information might be crucial when they reached their destination. On the day of departure, Earth's orbital stations were crowded with people watching the launch. The Resilience was not a large ship, but it represented humanity's first attempt to reach beyond their own solar system. As the ship activated its Alcubierre drive and disappeared into folded space, Kim Soo wondered if they would ever see home again. The signal from the Vel had not been meant for humanity, but humans had heard it anyway, and now they were racing across the galaxy to answer a call for help that no one expected them to receive. In the depths of space, the journey to Kepler 442 began. Behind them, Earth waited. Ahead of them, an unknown alien civilization fought for its survival against an enemy that consumed worlds. And in the middle, 37 humans traveled toward a war that was not their own, simply because someone had asked for help. The Resilience moved through folded space like a bubble traveling through water. Captain Cho Min watched the strange lights outside her ship's windows and wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. 6 months into their journey, the ship had already faced 3 major system failures. The Alcubierre drive was not designed for such a long trip. Chief Engineer Dr. Yoonji worked 18 hours a day to keep everything running. "Captain," Yoonji said, entering the bridge with oil stains on her uniform, "the quantum field generators are overheating again. I can fix them, but we need to drop out of warp for 6 hours." Cho Min nodded. They had dropped out of warp 12 times already. Each delay meant the Vel had to survive a little longer without help. During the repair stops, the crew trained for combat. They practiced shooting drills with their basic weapons. They studied the incomplete information about Vel and Devourer technology. Most importantly, they tried to imagine how humans could fight an enemy that was defeating a civilization far more advanced than their own. Dr. Kim Soo spent most of his time listening to space, hoping to hear more Vel transmissions. 9 months into the journey, he finally did. Captain, I'm picking up new signals from the Kepler 442 system, Kim Soo reported. Cho Min rushed to the communication station. What are they saying? Kim Soo's face was grim. It's not good. The Vel have lost 2 more worlds. They're no longer asking for military help. They're sending evacuation warnings. The new messages painted a terrible picture. The Devourers had overwhelmed the Vel defensive lines. Refugee ships were fleeing toward the outer planets of the system. The Vel were preparing to abandon their homeworlds. How much longer until we arrive? Cho Min asked her navigator. 4 months, Captain. 4 months might be too late. Dr. Park Hai studied the new transmissions looking for any useful information. What she found made her stomach turn. Captain, look at this, Park Hai said, displaying images from the Vel messages. These are pictures of worlds after the Devourers attacked them. The images showed planets stripped bare. No oceans, no atmosphere, no life. The entire surface had been consumed, leaving behind dead rock floating in space. They're not just conquering. Dr. Yoon. Ji whispered. They're eating everything. The crew of the Resilience realized they were traveling toward something worse than war. They were heading into a battle against creatures that consumed entire worlds. 2 weeks later, Kim Soo detected something new in the Vel transmissions. The aliens had discovered quantum communication interference. Someone was disrupting their long-range communications. The Devourers can block quantum signals, Kim Soo explained to the captain. That's why the Vel are losing. They can't coordinate their defenses across multiple star systems. This gave Cho Min an idea. Humans had developed different communication technology than the Vel. Maybe human systems would work where Vel systems failed. The final months of the journey passed quickly. The crew worked constantly, preparing weapons, studying enemy tactics, and modifying their ship for combat. When they finally arrived at Kepler 442, they found a solar system in chaos. Massive ships moved between the planets like hungry animals. The Devourer vessels were unlike anything in human experience. They looked alive, with organic curves and surfaces that pulsed like beating hearts. Some ships were the size of cities, slowly consuming the material from asteroid belts and moons. Smaller, Vel ships darted between the giants like insects around sleeping beasts. The Vel vessels were beautiful, with clean lines and crystal-like surfaces that reflected starlight. But they were clearly outmatched. My God, whispered the ship's pilot, Bai Su. How many of them are there? Dr. Yoon Ji ran a quick scan. I count over 300 Devourer ships. Most of them are focused on the inner planets. Captain Cho Min opened a communication channel using the Vel quantum frequencies. This is the human ship Resilience. We received your distress call. We're here to help. The response came immediately. Human ship, this is General Cax Moore of the Vel Defense Fleet. You must leave this system immediately. The Devourers will destroy you. General, we didn't come this far to turn around, Cho Min replied. What do you need? There was a long pause. When General Cax Moore spoke again, his voice carried surprise and confusion. You traveled 47 light years to answer our call, but the message was not sent to your species. We know, Cho Min said. We heard it anyway. Another pause. Human Captain, our civilization has existed for 50,000 of your years. We have never encountered your species. Why would you risk your lives for strangers? Cho Min looked around, her bridge at the faces of her crew. Kim Soo was already working to establish better communications. Park Hai was analyzing the Devourer ships. Yoonji was preparing their weapon systems. Because you asked for help, Cho Min said simply. General Cax Moore agreed to meet with the humans. His flagship was a massive crystal structure that gleamed like a jewel among the stars. When Cho Min and her senior officers boarded the Vel ship, they got their first look at the aliens they had come to help. The Vel were tall, graceful beings with multiple arms and skin that looked like living crystal. General Cax Moore stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and eyes that sparkled with internal light. You are much smaller than I expected, the general said, studying the humans. We're tougher than we look, Commander Li Tae replied. He had arrived with reinforcements 2 weeks after the Resilience. General Cax Moore showed them tactical displays of the battle. The Devourers had consumed 4 Vel worlds completely. 2 more planets were under attack. The Vel defense fleet was down to less than 200 ships. "We estimate the Devourer force at over 1,000 vessels," the general explained. "Each ship is a living creature merged with technology. They heal damage quickly and adapt to our weapons." Dr. Park High studied the tactical data. "General, have you tried electromagnetic pulse attacks?" "What is electromagnetic pulse?" Cax Moore asked. Park High looked at her colleagues in surprise. The Vel had advanced quantum technology, but they had never developed EMP weapons. Dr. Yoon Ji pointed to the energy readings from the Devourer ships. "Look at these power distribution patterns. They're using biological neural networks to control their technology. EMP might disrupt those networks." General Cax Moore studied the human analysis. "Your species sees patterns we missed. How is this possible?" "Different perspective," Li Te said. "We solve problems differently than you do." Over the next few days, humans and Vel worked together to develop new tactics. Dr. Yoonji collaborated with Vel engineers to create hybrid weapons that combined human EMP technology with Vel energy systems. Pilot Bei Su worked with Vel fighter pilots to develop new flight patterns. The Vel flew with precise calculated movements based on thousands of years of military tradition. Bei Su taught them human concepts like improvisation and chaos theory. "Don't fly where the enemy expects you to fly," Bei Su explained to a group of Vel pilots. "Be unpredictable. Make them guess." The first test of human-Vel cooperation came when a Devourer scouting force approached the gas giant where the refugee fleet was hiding. 5 Devourer ships, each the size of a human city, moved toward the planet like hunting sharks. Captain Cho Min led a combined force of human and Vel ships to intercept them. The human ships were tiny compared to the enemy vessels, but they carried the new hybrid weapons. "Remember," Cho Min broadcast to all ships, "we're not trying to destroy them in a fair fight. We're trying to disrupt their coordination and retreat." The battle lasted only 20 minutes, but it changed everything. The human ships darted around the larger Devourer vessels like mosquitoes, hitting them with EMP bursts that temporarily disabled their control systems. The Vel ships followed up with concentrated energy attacks that damaged the confused enemy. For the first time in months, the Devourer ships retreated. General Cax Moore watched the battle recordings with amazement. "How did you know their weakness?" "We didn't," Cho Min admitted. "We guessed and got lucky." But it wasn't just luck. Dr. Kim Soo had been monitoring Devourer communications during the battle. He made a discovery that would change everything. "Captain, the Devourers use quantum entanglement for coordination just like the Vel, but their system is different. It's more complex but also more vulnerable to interference." Park High looked at the data. "If we can disrupt their quantum communications, we can blind their entire fleet." The humans had traveled across the galaxy to answer a call for help that wasn't meant for them. Now they were about to show the Vel that sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places. The war was far from over, but for the first time in months, there was hope. Dr. Yoonji had never worked so hard in her life. For 2 weeks, she had been collaborating with Rix Vel, a Vel scientist whose crystalline skin changed colors when he was excited. Right now, Rix Vel was glowing bright blue. "The energy matrix is stable," Rix Vel announced, his forearms working at different control panels simultaneously. "Your electromagnetic pulse technology integrates perfectly with our crystalline energy systems." Yoonji wiped sweat from her forehead and looked at their creation. The hybrid weapon looked like a human missile with Vel crystal formations growing from its surface. It was beautiful and deadly at the same time. "How many can we build?" she asked. "With our current resources, perhaps 50 units, Rix Vel replied. "But each weapon will be more effective than 100 conventional missiles." In another part of the Vel command ship, Pilot Bei Su was teaching Vel fighter pilots something their civilization had never learned: how to be unpredictable. "Your traditional tactics are too organized," Bei Su explained to a group of Vel pilots. "The Devourers can predict your movements because you follow patterns. Watch this. On the training simulation, Bei Su's fighter moved in ways that made no tactical sense. He flew directly toward enemy fire, then suddenly changed direction. He used debris as cover, even when it meant flying into dangerous areas. To the Vel pilots, it looked like madness. "This appears to be suicide," said Wing Commander Tor Vel. "Exactly," Bei Su grinned. "The enemy thinks so too. They can't predict crazy." The Vel pilots were slow to learn human tactics. Their species had spent thousands of years developing precise, efficient fighting methods. Chaos and improvisation felt wrong to them, but results spoke louder than tradition. In practice battles against simulated devourer ships, mixed human Vel squadrons performed twice as well as pure Vel formations. Meanwhile, Dr. Kim Su made a disturbing discovery about devouré communication. The quantum entanglement network wasn't just for coordination. It was how the creatures shared consciousness. "They're not individual ships," Kim Su explained to Captain Cho Min and General Cax Moore. "Each devourer vessel is part of a single giant mind. When we disrupt their communications, we're not just blinding them, we're causing them pain." General Cax Moore's crystalline features showed confusion. "Are you suggesting the devourers are sentient?" "More than sentient," Dr. Park Hai added, joining the conversation. "I've been analyzing their attack patterns. They don't just consume resources randomly. They target specific things: art, music, literature, anything that represents culture and creativity." This changed how the humans and Vel thought about their enemy. The devourers weren't just hungry animals. They were intelligent creatures that chose to destroy civilizations. "Commander." Li Te arrived with more disturbing news. "Our scouts have identified the Devourer command ship. It's the size of a small moon hiding behind the gas giant's largest satellite." The command ship was unlike the other Devourer vessels. While most looked like living creatures merged with technology, the command ship appeared to be a planet that had grown spaceship capabilities. Massive organic structures covered its surface like cities made of bone and metal. "That's where their central consciousness is located," Kim Su said, studying the sensor readings. "If we can reach that ship and disrupt its quantum core, we might be able to blind their entire fleet." General Cax Moore studied the tactical situation. The command ship was protected by over 200 Devourer vessels, including some of their largest warforms. "A direct assault would be suicide. We need a different approach," Cho Min said. "Something they won't expect." That night, the human and Vel commanders developed the most audacious plan in galactic military history. Instead of attacking the command ship directly, they would use the gas giant's gravity and magnetic field against the Devourers. Dr. Yoonji and Rix Vel worked together to modify the hybrid weapons. Instead of explosive warheads, the missiles would carry quantum interference devices. When they detonated near the command ship, they would create a cascade failure in the Devourer consciousness network. The plan required perfect timing and incredible luck. Worse, it meant that many ships would not survive the mission. 3 days later, the combined human-Vel fleet moved toward the gas giant. The Devourer ships detected them immediately and moved to intercept. What looked like a conventional space battle was actually an elaborate deception. "Remember," Captain Cho Min broadcast to all ships, "we're not trying to win a fight. We're trying to get close enough to deliver our payload." The battle began as the fleets met near the gas giant's rings. Devourer ships attacked with weapons that seemed to bend space itself. Vel vessels responded with crystalline energy beams that could cut through solid rock. Human ships darted between the giants, too small to be primary targets but dangerous, enough to cause problems. Pilot Bei Su led a squadron of mixed human and Vel fighters in the most dangerous part of the mission. They had to fly through the gas giant's upper atmosphere to reach the command ship from below. "Stay close to the atmospheric boundary," Bei Su instructed his pilots. "The magnetic interference will hide us from their sensors." Flying through a gas giant's atmosphere was something no Vel pilot had ever attempted. The gravitational forces were enormous, and the electrical storms could destroy ships instantly. But human pilots had trained for extreme conditions, and they taught the Vel how to survive impossible situations. The fighter squadron emerged from the gas giant directly below the Devourer command ship. For a few precious minutes they were undetected. Dr. Yoon-ji's hybrid weapons launched from the fighters like shooting stars. The missiles flew straight toward the massive command ship, their crystalline components glowing with accumulated energy. The Devourers detected the attack just before impact. Defense systems activated, destroying most of the missiles. But 3 weapons reached their target and detonated against the command ship's quantum core. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Every Devourer ship in the system stopped moving simultaneously. The massive creatures that had been consuming worlds suddenly floated helplessly in space. It worked, Dr. Kim-soo reported, hardly believing his own sensors. Their command network is completely disrupted, but the victory came at a terrible cost. The Devourer counterattack had destroyed half the human Vel fleet. Captain Cho-min's ship, the Resilience, had taken critical damage while protecting the missile launchers. All hands abandoned ship, Cho-min ordered as her bridge filled with smoke. The evacuation pods launched just as the Resilience's reactor began to overload. What happened next surprised everyone, including Cho-min herself. Instead of trying to escape the blast, she used the ship's dying moments to ram the Resilience directly into the nearest Devourer mothership. The collision and subsequent reactor explosion created a chain reaction that destroyed 3 more enemy vessels. General Cax-Moore watched the destruction with amazement. Captain Cho-min used her ship as a weapon. This tactic is not in any military manual. That's because no sane military manual would recommend it, Commander Lee Tae replied. But sometimes insane tactics work. With their command network disrupted, the Devourer ships became vulnerable. The remaining human Vel fleet pressed their advantage, destroying enemy vessels that could no longer coordinate their defenses. But even as they celebrated their victory, Dr. Park Hae made a troubling discovery. The quantum interference was temporary. The Devourer network was already beginning to repair itself. "We have maybe 6 hours before they're fully operational again," she warned. 6 hours wasn't enough time to destroy the entire Devourer fleet, but it was enough time to learn something crucial about their enemy. Dr. Kim-soo analyzed the communications traffic during the network disruption. What he found changed everything they thought they knew about the Devourers. "They're not evil," he announced to the shocked command staff. "They're in pain. Constant, unending pain. The consumption isn't about hunger. It's about trying to find something that will make the pain stop." The revelation hit both humans and Vel like a physical blow. Their enemy wasn't a monster trying to destroy the galaxy. It was a suffering creature that had lost control of itself. "If they're in pain," Captain Cho-min said from her hospital bed, "maybe we can help them instead of just fighting them." But help would have to wait. Long range. Sensors detected new Devourer fleets approaching the system. The battle they had just won was only the beginning of a much larger war. As the mixed human-Vel fleet prepared for the next assault, they carried new knowledge about their enemy and new hope about the possibility of ending the conflict through understanding rather than destruction. The signal that had brought them together across impossible distances was becoming something more than a call for help. It was becoming the foundation of a friendship that might save the galaxy. Dr. Park Hae couldn't sleep. For 3 days she had been studying the captured Devourer bioship in the Vel research facility, and what she found kept her awake at night. "Kim-soo, you need to see this," she called to her colleague. Kim-soo joined, her in the sterile examination room where the damaged Devourer vessel lay like a sleeping giant. The ship was the size of a building, but it pulsed with organic life. "Look at these genetic samples," Park Hae said, showing him her analysis. "This isn't just one species. There are genetic markers from dozens of different life forms." Kim-soo studied the data on her screen. "Are you saying the Devourers are made from other species? Not just made from them. They contain them. Watch this." Park Hae activated a scanner that showed the ship's internal structure. "See these neural networks? They're not Devourer brains. They're the preserved consciousness of species the Devourers consumed." The implications hit Kim-soo like a physical blow. The people they eat, they're still alive inside the ships? In a way, yes. Their minds are trapped in a collective consciousness, forced to participate in attacks against other civilizations. In another part of the research facility, Dr. Yoonji was making her own disturbing discoveries. The Devourer technology wasn't just advanced, it was impossible. Rixvel, look at these power readings, she said to her Vel colleague. These energy systems violate several laws of physics. Rixvel's crystalline skin turned a worried shade of purple. How is this possible? I think the Devourers learned to break the rules by consuming civilizations that understood different aspects of science. They didn't just eat the people, they absorbed their knowledge. The research team realized they were fighting an enemy that became stronger with every victory. Each civilization the Devourers consumed made them more powerful and more dangerous. Captain Cho Min, recovering from her injuries, called an emergency meeting of the Human Vel command staff. Her face was grim as she shared the intelligence reports. We're not just fighting an invading army, she announced. We're fighting a plague that absorbs everything it touches. Every species they've destroyed is still alive inside them, being forced to help with new attacks. General Caxmore's multiple arms moved in agitation. How many civilizations have they consumed? Dr. Park Hai displayed her analysis. Based on the genetic samples, at least 47 different species. Some of them appear to be extinct for thousands of years. Commander Lee Tae studied the data with growing alarm. If they've been doing this for thousands of years, why are they only now reaching this part of the galaxy? Dr. Kim Soo had been working on that question. I think I know. Look at these quantum communication traces. They lead back to a central source about 300 light-years from here. The source was in a star system that no longer appeared on any star charts. Where there should have been planets and a sun, space sensors detected only a massive artificial structure. That's their home, Kim Soo explained. Or what used to be their home. It looks like they consumed their own star system and turned it into some kind of massive ship. The revelation changed everything about their tactical situation. They weren't fighting a fleet that had traveled from another world. They were fighting a piece of a living planet that had grown to the size of a solar system. How do you kill something that big? Pilot Bae-Soo asked. You don't, Commander Lee Tae replied. But maybe you don't have to kill it. Maybe you just have to give it what it wants. Dr. Park Hai looked at him with confusion. What do you mean? Kim Soo said the Devourers are in constant pain. What if the consuming isn't about hunger? What if it's about trying to find a cure for whatever's wrong with them? General Caxmore considered this possibility. Are you suggesting we should try to communicate with them? I'm suggesting we should try to understand them, Lee Tae replied. Every war has a reason. If we can find their reason, maybe we can find a solution that doesn't involve destroying half the galaxy. But understanding would have to wait. Long-range sensors detected 3 new Devourer fleets approaching the Kepler 442 system. Each fleet was larger than the one they had just defeated. The Human-Vel alliance had barely survived their first encounter with the Devourers. Now they faced an enemy 3 times larger, and they had learned that conventional victory was impossible. We can't defend this system against that many ships, General Caxmore admitted. We should evacuate the remaining population and retreat to a more defensible position. Captain Cho Min disagreed. Running won't solve anything. They'll just follow us and consume whatever system we flee to. Then what do you suggest? The general asked. Cho Min looked at her human colleagues and saw the same determination in their faces that had brought them across the galaxy to answer a call for help that wasn't meant for them. We take the fight to them, she said. We find their home system and end this at the source. The idea was so audacious that even the humans were stunned. Travel to the Devourer homeworld would take months, even with their fastest ships. They would be leaving the Vel colonies defenseless. But Dr. Yoonji had been thinking about the problem differently. What if we don't have to choose between defending here and attacking there? She displayed a tactical projection showing both star systems. The Devourers use quantum entanglement for coordination. If we can create a quantum interference field large enough, We might be able to disrupt their communications across multiple systems simultaneously. Rixvel's skin glowed, bright white with excitement. A galaxy-wide communication blackout, but the energy requirements would be enormous. That's where their home system helps us, Yoonji continued. If it's really the size of a solar system, it must have an incredible power source. We use their own energy against them. The plan that emerged from their discussions was the most dangerous mission in galactic history. A small fleet would travel to the Devourer homeworld and attempt to turn their central power source into a quantum interference generator. It's basically a mission to sabotage a living planet, Dr. Kim Soo summarized. A living planet that's been consuming civilizations for thousands of years, Park Hai added. General Cax Moore studied the proposal with his crystalline features showing deep concern. Even if this plan succeeds, the team that goes to their homeworld will not survive. The Devourers will throw everything they have at anyone who threatens their central consciousness. Captain Cho Min stood up from her medical chair, ignoring the protests of the Vel doctors. Then we better make sure we succeed on the first try. The volunteer list for the mission filled up within hours. Nearly every human in the fleet volunteered, along with hundreds of Vel personnel. They all understood that this was likely a one-way trip. But as they prepared for the most dangerous mission in galactic history, Dr. Park Hai made one more discovery that changed how they thought about their enemy. Deep in the genetic analysis of the Devourer bioship, she found something that made her hands shake. Among the dozens of absorbed species, she recognized one set of genetic markers. Kim Soo, she called, her voice barely a whisper. Look at this DNA sequence. Kim Soo studied the data and felt his heart stop. Those are Devourer genetic markers. Original Devourer DNA. The enemy that had been consuming the galaxy for thousands of years had once been victims themselves. Somewhere in the ancient past, the Devourers had been a normal species that had tried to merge with their technology and lost control of the process. They're not evil, Park Hai realized. They're trapped. Their entire species is trapped inside their own creation, forced to consume other civilizations in an endless search for a way to end their suffering. This revelation added urgency to their mission. They weren't just trying to stop an enemy. They were trying to save a species that had been suffering for millennia, along with all the civilizations trapped inside them. The Devourer homeworld waited in the darkness, a living planet that had once been someone's home. And somewhere inside that massive consciousness, 47 extinct civilizations waited for someone to set them free. The Devourer homeworld filled the view screen of the combined human-Vel fleet like a nightmare made real. Where there should have been a planet, a massive organic structure pulsed with alien life. Tentacles the size of continents reached into space, and surfaces covered with what looked like cities breathed with slow, horrible rhythm. It's bigger than I imagined, whispered Captain Cho Min, now promoted to admiral after her survival became known. The entire solar system has been consumed and rebuilt into this thing. Dr. Kim Soo monitored the communications coming from the living planet. The quantum signals were so dense and complex that they hurt to listen to. I'm detecting millions of individual consciousness patterns. All the species they've absorbed are still alive in there. The approach to the homeworld had taken 4 months. During the journey, the Human-Vel Alliance had developed new weapons and tactics. Dr. Yoonji and Rixvel had created quantum bombs designed to disrupt the collective consciousness network. But as they drew closer to their target, everyone realized how impossible their mission truly was. The homeworld was protected by fleets of Devourer ships that defied counting. Thousands of vessels moved in perfect coordination, some as large as moons. Biomechanical weapons grew from the planet's surface like metal trees, reaching toward the approaching Alliance fleet. Admiral, reported Commander Lee Tae. Long range. Sensors detect over 10,000 Devourer ships in defensive positions around the homeworld. Admiral Cho Min studied the tactical display. Her small fleet of 300 ships was outnumbered more than 30-1. In any conventional battle, they would be destroyed in minutes. Remember, she broadcast to all ships, we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to reach the central consciousness and give it a choice. The plan was simple in concept but nearly impossible to execute. While most of the fleet engaged the Devourer defenses, a small team would penetrate to the homeworld's core and deploy the quantum bombs. But instead of simply disrupting the network, they would offer the collective consciousness something it had been seeking for thousands of years: peace. Dr. Park High had spent months analyzing the genetic and consciousness patterns of the absorbed species. She believed the collective was in constant agony because it contained too many conflicting minds. The quantum bombs could either destroy the network or give it the ability to choose individual death over collective suffering. The final battle began as the Alliance fleet entered the outer defensive perimeter. Devourer ships attacked with weapons that seemed to warp reality itself. Space twisted around their energy beams and matter dissolved where their bioweapons touched. Pilot Besu led a squadron of human and Vel fighters through the chaos, using every trick of unpredictable flying he had developed. "Stay random," he broadcast to his pilots. "Don't fly where they expect you to fly." The fighter squadrons darted between capital ships like insects around giants, drawing enemy fire away from the main assault force. Many pilots didn't survive the first few minutes of combat, but their sacrifice created openings for the larger ships. Dr. Yoon-ji monitored the quantum bombs from the flagship as they approached the homeworld's surface. The weapons were her life's work, devices that could either save or damn an entire galaxy. 30 seconds to target, she reported. All quantum devices show green status. The bombs penetrated the homeworld's outer defenses and buried themselves deep in the organic structure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire planet shuddered. Dr. Kim Soo, monitoring from the communication station, suddenly went rigid. "I'm getting something. The collective is trying to communicate." The message that came through the quantum link was unlike anything they had ever received. It wasn't words or images, it was pure emotion. Pain, desperation, longing, and above all, exhaustion. "It's tired," Kim Soo translated, tears running down his face. "The collective consciousness is so tired. It's been suffering for so long that it can't remember what peace feels like." Admiral Cho Min opened a communication channel to the homeworld. "We hear you," she said simply. "We came to offer you a choice." The response was immediate and overwhelming. The collective consciousness spoke with the voices of 47 extinct species, all asking the same question. "What choice?" Dr. Park High took over the communication. "You can continue as you are, trapped in endless hunger and pain, or you can choose to let go. The quantum bombs can give you and all the minds trapped within you the peace of final rest." The planet's surface writhed as the collective consciousness considered this offer. For the first time in thousands of years, it had been given the option to stop. "But what about the knowledge?" the collective asked. "What about all the discoveries, all the art, all the beauty we have preserved from the consumed civilizations?" "You can release it," Yoon-ji replied. "The quantum bombs can separate the knowledge from the consciousness. The discoveries and art can survive even if the minds find peace." The debate within the collective consciousness was visible on the planet's surface. Different sections pulsed with different colors as trillions of minds discussed their fate. Some wanted to continue existing even in pain. Others begged for the release of death. General Cax Moore watched the display with amazement. "They're voting. An entire planet-sized consciousness is holding a democratic vote about whether to die." The battle continued around them as the collective made its decision. Devourer ships, no longer coordinated by the central consciousness, fought with less precision. The Alliance fleet pressed their advantage, but they too were taking heavy losses. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, the collective consciousness reached its decision. "We choose peace," came the message. "For ourselves and for all the minds we have carried for so long. But first, we will give you our gift." Homeworld began to change. Instead of weapons and defenses, the surface erupted with transmission devices. Data streams poured out into space containing the accumulated knowledge of 47 civilizations. Scientific discoveries that could cure diseases and extend life. Artistic works of unimaginable beauty. Mathematical proofs that explained the fundamental structure of reality, philosophical insights about the nature of existence itself. My God, whispered Dr. Kim Soo, they're giving us everything, the collective knowledge of an entire galaxy's worth of civilizations. As the data transfer continued, the collective consciousness began its final act. The quantum bombs activated not as weapons, but as keys, unlocking the prison that had held trillions of minds for millennia. One by one, the consciousness patterns separated from the collective. Each extinct species spoke its final words before choosing to rest. They thanked the Alliance for giving them the choice, and for ensuring their knowledge would survive. The original devourer species was the last to speak. We were trying to become immortal, their leader explained. We merged our consciousness with our technology to live forever, but we lost control. We became trapped in our own creation, forced to consume others in an endless search for a way to end our suffering. We forgive you, Admiral Cho Min said. You weren't evil, you were just in pain. Thank you. The devourer consciousness replied. For 40,000 years, no one has shown us compassion. You answered our distress call, even though it was never meant for you. As the last consciousness chose peace, the massive homeworld began to collapse, but it wasn't destruction, it was transformation. The living planet dissolved into streams of pure energy that spread throughout the galaxy, carrying the preserved knowledge to every world with intelligent life. The devourer fleet stopped fighting immediately. Without the collective consciousness to drive them, they became dormant, floating peacefully in space like sleeping giants. Admiral Cho Min looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They had traveled across the galaxy to answer a call for help, and they had ended up saving not just the Vel, but an entire galaxy's worth of trapped civilizations. Admiral, Dr. Park Hai reported, we're receiving acknowledgement signals from star systems throughout the galaxy. The knowledge transmission reached hundreds of civilizations. The mission that had begun with a single intercepted distress call had become the foundation for a new galactic community. Species that had never known about each other were now sharing knowledge and establishing communication. General Cax Moore joined the human officers on the bridge. Your species has given the galaxy something it has never had before. Proof that someone will answer when you call for help. Dr. Kim Soo was already working to establish communication protocols with the newly contacted civilizations. The signal detection array that had started everything would become the foundation for a galactic communication network. As the combined fleet began its journey home, they carried more than just survivors. They carried the knowledge of 47 civilizations and the promise that the galaxy was no longer a dark and lonely place. The signal that had started their journey had been a call for help that wasn't meant for humanity. But humans had answered anyway, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy that someone was always listening, always ready to help, no matter how far away or impossible the journey might seem. Back on Earth, Dr. Kim Soo's detection array continued to scan the cosmos for signals.